Hey, what's up? James here for PaydirtDFS.com. I just wanted to show quick some upgrades that I made to the portfolio manager, and specifically a really cool one where you can create a custom export. So I have already obviously gone through and like set up all of my files here, but I'll do a load really quick just so that everybody can see it. So I'm going to load the salaries from today. I'm going to load just names for the portfolio here. And this is coming straight from the optimals over on the site. You can find them here. And then I have the projections here as well. So one of the things that I did today was change up the way that name matching works. You can see the name matching is going down here and saying some things. The portfolio to the site CSV is one set. The projection to the site CSV is another set. And then the portfolio to the projections is the third set. So it's just making sure that names are consistent across each one. Now, the main things that I wanted to show off here really quick. So the big thing that I added here is the ability to do a custom export, which is going to allow you to kind of stack different subsets of filtering and trimming. So what we're going to do here is we have our portfolio here. So let's just do a couple trims and filters so that we can create a custom export. So one of the things I'm going to do here, I'm just going to say, give me all the lineups with Will Warren, right? We're just going to lock him in. Okay, there's 3,306 lineups here. And then of those lineups, I'm going to trim them on weighted own with median. Now, I'm going to do another video a little bit later on this, but just for the purpose of showing off this, we're just going to trim. Okay, so that gives us 13 lineups. Now, right now, if you go and look at the export base, obviously it's empty. But if we go back here and we say add to custom export, then now over here, when we load up the custom base, we see that those lineups have made it over here. So now let's go ahead and reset the portfolio and let's put in another subset. So we had 13 lineups there. So we did that with all Will Warren. Now let's do it with all lineups that do not include Will Warren, right? So let's submit that. And then we have 6,694 lineups. And then let's go ahead and just, again, do a trim on median and weighted ownership. And we'll just go ahead and trim that down. And that's going to give us another 13 lineups. Now, these ones do not include any Will Warren. So when we add this to the custom export, you can now see that when we go over to the export base, we have 26 lineups. Half of them are going to contain Will Warren, right? Half of them, this top half is going to contain Will Warren. And then the second half is going to have all lineups that do not have Will Warren, right? So now we have a nice little custom export here that we've created with two different scenarios for your portfolio. One side where you have Will Warren in all of your lineups, and one side where you do not have any Will Warren. And then all that you need to do is go up here and say, okay, if you are displaying the export base, if you hit download portfolio, it's going to give you that lineup, that set of lineups exported in the same way that it is exporting a regular portfolio. So this is really nice in that it allows you to put in a little bit better fine-tuned control over the kind of scenarios that you're relying on. You could do other things, obviously, where let's reset the portfolio here and go over another scenario, right? Say that I wanted to do, and we'll just do portfolio here, right? Because we just want to see all of them. Say that I know that Will Warren lineups with Brian Wu are going to be the most popular lineups tonight, right? And then let's just run all of those. So we have 135 lineups. Technically, we could just say that we want all of those, right? But let's say instead that we wanted to trim those down, and say, here's the best 5 lineups of that. Okay, cool. Let's add to the custom export. So then let's reset this. And then instead of having both of them, right, let's do a set of lineups where we have Brian Wu, but we exclude Will Warren, right? We can set that up here. And then again, I'm just going to do the same thing where we have ran all of those. Let's go down here, go ahead and trim this out. Now we have another 12 lineups. Let's go ahead and add that to our custom export. And then, as you might have guessed it, We're going to reset it. And this time, instead of locking Brian Wu and excluding Will Warren, let's lock Will Warren and exclude Brian Wu, right? So now we have a scenario set up where our portfolio is very heavily dependent on the chalk pitching, but because we were smart about setting up our different scenarios, we now have a third of our portfolio dependent on Will Warren without Brian Wu, a third of our portfolio dependent on Brian Wu without Will Warren, and then a third where we have both of them, right? So we have this, we can download our portfolio, and now we see that we have all those lineups. We have all 43 of our lineups, and they're set up in a way where our portfolio has been trimmed down and set up in a way that is much less volatile. It's still all about the chalk SPs, right? We still got a bunch of Will Warren. We've still got a bunch of Brian Wu. We still have a whole bunch of combinations of those guys, right? But we have made it so that the median and the weighted ownership, it's justified ownership in each different scenario. We have 43 different lineups here. That's a pretty decent portfolio. And if we wanted to, I suppose, fuck it. I'll just show off this new trimming stuff. So say that you wanted more than those lineups, right? Say you wanted more lineups than just 43, but you still wanted to use the trimming functions and you still wanted to go through the same process. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's start with Will Warren and let's add Brian Wu here. Okay. So now the only difference that we're going to go on this, and I suppose I should probably clear my custom export because I haven't done that yet. So here we have our 10,000 lineups. So let's go ahead and lock these guys. So we have 135 lineups. Now, last time, remember when we trimmed, we only had 5 lineups left. Say that you wanted more than that, but you still wanted to go through the same functional process of trimming your lineups. I've added in this trim slack variable. And what this does is it aims to give a little bit of slack and a little bit of leeway towards what it is trimming out. So what we can do is we can just say, okay, I want more lineups than that. Let's include a 20% slack for the trim. And we'll see, originally we only got 5 lineups. Now we have 63. But when we open this up and we look at the way that this worked, we can see that, the weighted ownership is still going down, right? Functionally, we still see that as the median is going down, the weighted ownership is also going down. It's just not near as rigid about it, right? So then we can add those. Let's make it 10 actually. So let's reset this and let's reset this back up because I don't want to add all 63 lineups there. I want to add, a little bit less than that. So let's play around with that a little bit. Let's do Warren and Wu. The Wu-Warren connection, as the kids are calling it. Okay, let's just make sure that my export base is empty. I think that it is. Yeah. So we have these 135 lineups, right? Let's go with a 10% slack here and let's trim. So there you go, 23 lineups. And like I said, the weighted ownership, it's going to be dropping down with us here. So then, it drops down in that 53 range. So we're happy about that. That looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and add those to the custom export. It's 23 lineups. And then let's reset, right? And we'll go back into Will Warren without Brian Wu. Wu versus Warren, as it would be. Gives us 3,170. And again, we can maintain this 10% variable. We'll trim that. So that's going to give us 45 lineups, right? Let's go ahead and add that to the custom export now. So now, we should have 63 lineups here. 68, right? Go back to portfolio. And then let's reset it one more time. And this time, let's do Brian Wu without Will Warren. Let's see what that gives us. Brian Wu, Will Warren, submit that. So now it's 665 lineups or 675. Let's go ahead and trim it with that 10% slack. That's going to give us 22 lineups. So I'll add that to the custom export. And over here, now we see that we have 90 lineups. We can download that and we can say, okay, cool, sounds good. Here's 90 lineups, and this is a perfectly acceptable portfolio, right? I mean, this is splitting up the chalk really nicely, and you can do this for however you feel like doing it. And this is obviously a function that can be used for showdown, for MMA, for whatever, right? But the key concept here is being able to play with different scenarios using different filtering and different trimming, right? I mean, you could have one set of lineups that is, a min acceptable edge of 10% versus 0% versus negative 10%, right? Like you could do some scenario planning for different finishing percentiles. You could do it for acceptable dupes, right? Like you could do one set where you have 10 acceptable dupes, one where it's 20, one where it's 50. You could do some sets where you are locking, the key part of your Astro stack and removing Brian Wu, right? You could do sets where you're trimming only within a certain threshold, right? I didn't even show this off, but say that we have, let's reset this really quick. And then we can go back to our portfolio. And another thing that you can do here, say that you only wanted to trim lineups that were below a projection of 100, right? You could do that. And you could say, okay, so for any lineups that are above 100 fantasy points, I don't want to trim those. Like those are fine. But any lineup below that, I do want to trim that. And actually, let's increase this up to like 110. And let's say, okay, I only want to trim lineups that are above 100, right? And then just maintain the rest. So we could trim that. And then you'll see that any lineups that are above 100 get trimmed. But then after that, it just says, okay, whatever, just fucking go for it, right? So these are some new features that got added to the portfolio manager. It's also faster now. It's also a little bit more reliable. Name matching is a little bit better. If you have not used it yet, you should. It's good for SE. It's good for 3Max. Good for MME, obviously. You can find it right here. You can also find the contest analyzer there. It's another experimental tool. Either way, just wanted to show off a couple of features that I've been working on that are just going to make everybody better. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support. Love you all. Bye.